All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jamal Wahib, based in Dubai, covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Clarivate. I'm part of the solution consultant team, so I look after lots of many different solutions related to scientific research. And I'm also a researcher at Leiden University in the Netherlands. I'm very much interested in everything related to measuring science, understanding how science is produced, published, shared, cited, funded, communicated, and different dimensions, collaborations, mobility, and so on. So what we call science of science. Today, we have a session about the Web of Science Research Assistant, which is the latest development within the Web of Science. So I'll go through some slides to explain how it is built, and then I'll go through a live demo. This session is going to be slightly shorter than the usual long webinars that I do, but I'll make sure that we have enough time for questions and discussions towards the end of the session. Okay, so let me get started. So when it comes to AI, there is AI everywhere. AI transforms every market, and higher education research is no exception. So while we recognize the potential of generative AI, everyone has heard about ChatGPT, Gemini, and all these different models. We recognize the potential of generative AI to accelerate productivity and innovation, but it also introduces some concerns, some issues about its impact on teaching and research integrity, right? So teaching, because now you ask a question to a student goes and asks the question and get the answers. So that obviously creates some problems. And in terms of research integrity, because when it comes to generative AI, it generates content, text, images, data that is not generated by the author himself or herself. So that creates some questions. So the point is the convergence of market trends, customer needs, and also the recent developments in technology that creates a massive opportunity for everyone in the research ecosystem, starting with libraries, researchers, universities, or teaching institutions. But at the same time, it does present some risks and concerns that should be addressed, right? What we've seen is obviously students and researchers, they increasingly use AI tools across different use cases like literature review, generating content. It does even generate citations, like references to the literature. We've seen universities, but also governments, countries, Ministry for Higher Education and Research, actively developing guiding principles. So how this technology should be used. And there needs to be a balance between educational and research benefits against misuse, like, for example, plagiarism, right? So you get a text that is basically a copy of someone else's work, right? And how to leverage in curricular and research processes. So these are points that need to be evaluated and addressed. So what we worked on at Clarivate, we call it the Academic AI Platform, and I'll explain very briefly our strategy and approach. So we have typically three categories. We have the first one, which is we have existing solutions like the Web of Science, but also ProQuest Platform, eBook Central, Exlibris Discovery. And we want to add AI to these solutions. So we do similar things in the Web of Science that what we used to do in the past, but we want to do it better thanks to artificial intelligence. So that more than enhancements, you will see the research assistant is really a product in itself. It's because it brings new capabilities and it addresses new use cases within existing solutions, right? For example, like think about new ways of searching in the Web of Science through natural language, like through a chat way of communicating, right? Instead of building your search query yourself. And then the second type of advancement that we do is we transform with AI, which is we create new services, new applications that we didn't have or we couldn't do before. It's like implementing new solutions to existing challenges. For example, academic coach that has been introduced in Alethea, which is another solution, and it does provide engagement with students, right? So when they learn, there are ways to engage with the student to make sure that they have an assignment and they do that, they work on that assignment correctly, and there is a check on the understanding of the learning of the student, right? So instead of the user, what we do in ChatGPT, for example, you ask a question, you get an answer. In Alethea is different. So instead of the user asking questions, it's the chatbot, or in this case, academic coach, who's asking the questions so that it's guiding the student through reading assignments, and at the end, you get a better understanding. Research assistant, so that's what I will focus on today. And then the third type of development within our academic platform, it's increasing efficiencies. So that applies both to increasing customer efficiencies and productivity, but as well as own backend processes. For example, using AI to enrich metadata, right, at scale. Okay. So to do that across our different solutions, we're developing our academic AI platform infrastructure, which is built on content of high quality that you can trust. We look at workflows, obviously, teams, tech teams, technology teams, expertise, and talents. In the case of these different developments, Web of Science Research Assistant, for example, that has been developed with deep partnerships with the academic community. And of course, what we look at is strong governance for responsible AI. So we want to have solutions that you can trust with high level of transparency. So how we do this? So we do that to support multiple use cases at different at high scale. We're developing this platform, and it will allow us to deliver more capabilities and solutions. For example, you discover through a chat through a discussion with an assistant, right? You get more content, for example, a commentary on an article, and then you make sure that you get content that you can trust. So it's more than infrastructure. There's a whole team working around these different questions, right? And the goal is to make sure that we want to share insights and findings, right? Evaluate results, gather feedback from the users to make sure that these different tools are adopted with the best practices. Something very important that I want to highlight is the responsible use and application of AI. So we have, in terms of activities, we have an AI advisory console, make sure that we implement AI in the solution in the best way, and beta programs. So the research assistant that you will see today in the Web of Science has been developed over 9 months, since November, December 2023, in deep partnership with academic institutions, so mainly universities, going through the development of and testing the platform. And we follow important principles, ethical AI principles. So we don't use publishers' content to train public large language models. That's very important. This is something that other tools like ChatGPT does. They get content from different sources and they train their models. You'll see that in the research assistant, when you get a result, there is a proper attribution and easy access to the works, the references. So something that is quite well known with large language models is hallucination. So it creates content that looks good, but it's really bad. In reality, it's really bad. Something that I tried myself. So you do a literature review and it retrieves an article which looks good. The title looks good, but the author's names were completely wrong. And in this case, I was the author, but it attributed my work to someone else, right? So, and the risk here is that you cite that work, but it was not authored by this author, right? It was someone else's work that you cited, but not properly, right? Very important is in terms of transparency. When it generates content, that attribution creates a real transparency to the content, to the sources that are used in the answer, right? We collaborate with publishers to make sure that we have clear usage rights. So, for example, you take a publisher, it has lots of journals. You work with the publishing company to make sure that, and the authors as well, to make sure that we write and we use this content in the right way. And because this is a new field, regulations keep changing. So we need to make sure that we respect those regulations. And then there is a principle well known, which is human in the loop, which is, in short, we check what is produced by the tool, by the assistant. You'll see, for example, like we've done that during the development phases, but also now you can do it as a user. Once you get access, there is the thumb up, thumb down to give feedback about the response. All right, so in terms of innovation in the Web of Science, it's not the first time we come up with an improvement of the platform. Going back to the 60s, that's where the citation index was introduced, starting with science and then social sciences, arts, humanities, Atlas of Science first published. 1997, that's where we started to get internet. So instead of having the core collection or the citation indices in books, like in volumes and then floppy disks and then CD-ROMs, it became a website. That's why we call it a Web of Science. Google PageRank, that's where the founders of Google, Brian and Larry Page, they cite Garfield's work and they produced Google, a search engine that is using basically the same process of indexing content, but they do it across websites instead of scientific publications. Essential Science Indicators is launched in 2001 and so on. Researcher ID, which is now the code used, foundational code used by ORCID. Insights is launched in 2009. Manuscript Matcher 2015. Web of Science data, author identification in Web of Science data, right, using Publons, if you remember, and so on, right? Citation topics in Insights, but also now in the Web of Science, cited references, recommendation algorithm across 2021, 2022, suggestions of keywords when you search in the Web of Science, and now end of 2023, the Web of Science Research Assistant, tested by international institutional partners since 2023, and it was this week. So the something that I want to show, I want to focus on that very quickly. For example, you might have seen this is also AI that classifies citations, right? Is it a citation that we find as basis or that is supporting an idea or that is discussing an idea? You can see that in the Web of Science. And then search experience, you search on climate change, for example, and the Web of Science suggests other keywords. And it says, maybe you might be interested in global warming or drought, for example, right? So that is also AI. But more recently, we worked on the Web of Science Research Assistant. The Web of Science Research Assistant looks like this, right? So it is basically another way of searching for the information, but it helps you to search smarter, to research smarter, because it helps researchers at all levels get more out of your interaction with the platform, right? In this case, Web of Science core collection. It provides some guided tasks. So you can ask a question like naturally, or choose a guided task, like you want to understand the topic, right? Walk me through and help me to understand scientific mobility, right? Then it will introduce an understanding or it will provide key concepts, papers, and authors, right? That is obviously still possible with the Web of Science, the search, the classic search, but that would take a little bit more time, okay? Or you want to do a literature review, and that gives you a quick start, like help me gather and evaluate references I need on a specific topic. Or find a journal. You remember manuscript match, for example. Here you can ask the question directly in the research assistant. Here is my title, here's my abstract. Can you find some relevant journals? Some examples. How does climate change impact biodiversity? So if you had to do this in the Web of Science manually, it would be a little bit difficult. But now you have the assistant helping you doing this. Sorry. And then you have who are the top researchers in genetics. You could do that across any field. That will give you a quick list of researchers. Again, you could do that, but that involves a little bit of searching and building the right search query and analyzing the results. Which institutions published the most on COVID in the last 12 months? That's quite interesting. You could also do that, search on COVID and then do an analysis on institutions and then focus on the past year, right? Excuse me. And then you can also ask questions in different languages. For example, on the right, ¿cuáles son las consecuencias físicas de seguir una dieta vegana? Vegana here, you have a question in Spanish and you'll get an answer in Spanish. And same with other languages, right? So you can ask these questions directly in the Web of Science Research Assistant. So that will help you not only search more efficiently to find key papers, but also navigate complex research tasks. Keep in mind, some of these tasks are quite advanced, right? So that you can add more analytics into your analysis without having to build, product expertise, because some of these questions you need a little bit of practice to be able to do that in the Web of Science. Yeah, so these are our partners that help us to build the Web of Science Research Assistant. So we've been working directly with librarians, mainly, and researchers to get feedback and get our development and they guide us on developing the research assistant. And we gathered community input from several regions around the world to optimize the tool for different research use cases, right? Here, the key message here is that it's far more than a chatbot. An interesting quote from the librarian in Syracuse University, who says, "We're excited about the AI features that Web of Science is developing. I think Web of Science Research Assistant will be far superior to the other Gen AI or generative AI tools currently available to faculty and students at the moment." The key reason is around the capabilities that are already developed, but also the underlying content and the transparency that I mentioned earlier. So the goal is to spend less time building queries and more time learning from your results. And how you do that, you search efficiently with natural language in different languages. You want to understand, grasp core concepts faster, and you have overviews and commentaries that is generated from the database. And something that I want also to show you later on is the visualization, the maps that you can create at the author level, but also at the concept topic level. Some of you that might have used Web of Science in the past might remember the citation map that we used to have in the Web of Science. Now you can create such maps directly in the Web of Science Research Assistant, and that is quite powerful to understand the literature in your field. So here, for example, that is a question asked in Chinese. You get a response in Chinese, and then you have like references, and you have the list of papers that are cited, and yeah, so it is natural language responses that you can verify. So here you have the source of each citation, right? It goes back 120 years of research. Core collection goes back to 1900. These are responses that you can verify and check. And then if you're not happy with these 8 references, as I said, it is a quick start. You can say and ask view additional documents relevant to this response. And then the assistant asks you, what would you like to see next? And then you have 2 levels. Here in the dark blue, you can see related, and these 3 questions are on a higher level. It is more like the overview. So you want to see, for example, related and connected concepts, right? And that creates a topic map. Or you want to do analysis over time. You want to count the number of papers related to this topic in the past few years. Or you want to see the top authors. So it is more like an overview. And then you have more precise questions. For example, what are the latest research findings on mitochondria's impact on cancer cells? So that is, I would say, already quite precise question. And then it does the same with the same language that was initially used by the user. Okay. So here, for example, you can click on the reference, right? So responses, they're all reference. So you see there is number 2 here, that is this one. Okay. The first one, you can click on it and see that is basically data coming from the Web of Science core collection. So you see the authors, the journal, the sources, citation network, and then you can go deeper, like see related documents from here, right, of this one, and how this document has been mentioned over time. So it was cited 43 times, but are they citations that differ, they support, they use as basis, or in discussion of the manuscript, right? So you can do that side by side with the response, and it is easier this way to verify the responses and understand how exactly those responses or this text was generated. And then you can uncover meaningful connections. So as I mentioned earlier, you can create what we call a co-citation map. A co-citation happens when 2 different documents cite another document. So for example, here, 15 citing articles, but you see there are some co-citations, right? So for example, this one is citing this one, and this one is citing this one. So these 2 are related. And the more co-citations, the more 2 documents received, the higher the what we call the co-citation strength. Or take it this way, it's like they're related, right? They have a high level of relatedness, and that's what you can also use from a semantic perspective. If two documents cite another document, they are semantically related, and that can help you to identify key literature. When you do literature review, the key challenge, the important challenge, is to find key literature, and the map, without having to read these different papers, I see already that some papers get more citations from other papers. So you can explore related topics to narrow your search or expand your search. I can click on that and have more information about this one, for example, this paper. So I was looking at one paper initially, right? What is the co-citation of this paper? And then I have the map. You can identify the trends. I'll show you in a moment how it looks like. And you can generate such networks. So this is at the researcher level, like the authors of the papers, but you can do the same at the concept level. Okay. So you want to go through tasks with walkthroughs, save time with context-specific prompts, and you can develop strategies like, okay, I have now a better understanding of the literature. Maybe that's not a good idea to do this work, and I will adapt and do something else. If I search on authors, then I might find potential collaborators, right? Because I know that we share some interests. So this is how it looks like. You can start from a task, or you can ask questions. So for example, here I have an example. I'm going to walk you through understanding a topic. What is your topic of interest or research question? So I'm interested in biodiversity loss. It gives me like commentary or a quick summary, right? And then it tells me what would you like to see next. Okay. I might be interested in looking at authors, connection of concepts, see the trend of these publications, or something more precise. For example, what are the key contributors to biodiversity loss according to recent research, right? Or something more specific, like if we look at the Amazon rainforest. So here I want to mention a few points. So we're talking about curated data published in journals that have been selected, sources that have been selected, conference proceedings as well, and books. The assistant has been developed in partnership with the community, the academic community. We're looking at some interesting use cases, and there will be more use cases that can be addressed by the research assistant. And we want to make sure that there is a transparency. We want to respect those agreements, but also usage rights and regulations when it comes to using published content, working with publishers to address these issues. Our testers, what they've mentioned, so it's basically 3 pillars: trust, saving time, and insights. Right. In terms of trust, that's related to the data that it's trained on. So since it's trained on the documents in the Web of Science, I would feel more comfortable using this rather than any other tool on the internet, because you know the source. It's coming from journals that have been selected, right? So we're talking about high quality content. Saving time, it's very efficient. It's going to save a lot of time with connecting research. That's what a librarian is saying. Previous quote was from a PhD student. And then we have an information specialist who says, for daily keeping up to date on what's out there in your field and what's not connected to the circles you're traveling in, it is a nice tool. So you want to have quick information on huge volume of data. All right. So it's more than a chatbot. It is designed for researchers, and we want researchers to rely on a tool that provides answers that are verifiable answers that you can check based on high quality content. So what I want to do now is I want to show you a few slides, and then I'll go through the demo. So for example, here, tell me about the theories of language acquisition. I get a response, right? And I can check, like for example, the second here, reference. All right, that is language acquisition. That is very relevant. Or I can ask a question in a different language, and I'll get concise summary, right? That's the same question, but in a different language. And I get a nice summary, but you see, we retrieve some of the references that we looked at earlier. Yeah, and then you have guided tasks. For example, I want to understand a topic. What's your topic of interest? I'm interested in climate change. And then I have a nice summary. And what would you like? And patterns, right? I want to see the trend. I see the trend that is automatically generated. And what do I want to do next? For example, I want to see a map of concepts or a citation network. So let me show you how it is done in the Web of Science. So you'll see that the Web of Science interface has changed recently, last week. So here on the landing page, you already have the guided tasks, or you want to start a new chat. If you don't want to start from here, you could also start from here. You would see what I've done earlier. So that's some of the questions that I asked, or I can ask and generate a new chat. When I generate a new chat, so either I know already what I'm interested in. Let's start with the guided task, and then we'll ask something more specific later on. Or so this is what I've shown you earlier, like cuáles son las consecuencias físicas de seguir una dieta vegana. Here, that's in Spanish. With what are the physical consequences of following vegan diet, right? So I get an answer which tells me that the assistant went and searched for the Web of Science core collection, documents with physical consequences and vegan diet. It found a lot of papers, and it used that document to generate this. So this is still in Spanish, so it tells you that you might end up with some deficiency in certain nutrients like B12, zinc, calcium, and so on, right? And then you see it has generated those references, so I can see here. So I can give him, again, I can give it feedback. Let's say, okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, it gave me accurate information and so on. And then I have the list of the references that it's using to generate that commentary. And here I can view more here. So for example, it has been cited 78 times. I want to see how it has been cited. So many of these citations are in background or discuss section for this particular paper. I can go back and say, see related documents, similar to the Web of Science, you remember? So that's the citation map of this paper. When it comes to this paper from Baroni, published in 2019, I have the citation network, and I can go and view the publication record, right? And then it tells me that these are the top co-cited documents. So if I find this paper very relevant, then maybe those are also quite relevant. And that is quite quick. It's only a few clicks to find those relevant papers using the citation network. If I go back to the top here, let's take something. Let's take something else in English. So, for example, how does climate change impact biodiversity? You can. So let's stick to English so that we see what is created or generated. And now, so this is like on the overview, get a trend. So more and more documents published about climate change, right? So it seems that climate change started to be, early 2006. And then I could have a look at concepts. So here it tells me that climate change, it's also obviously related to climate, deforestation, land development, forest fires, desertification, ecosystem service, and so on. So I can go and say, all right, so I'm interested in that topic. And that creates a query for the Web of Science. And then I'm back to the Web of Science environment, right? So you can click on these bubbles. And then I'm interested in authors. So if I want to work on this topic, then those people are quite active because they publish quite frequently on this specific topic, right? What else? Yeah, I want to know about seminal papers on climate change. Seminal paper would be papers that would deserve some attention, right? So you see 24,000, that's massive, 24,000 citations, 7,000. So these are very old papers. You see, based on the chart, 1996, 2003. So that's basically the very early days of research on climate change. Yeah, and then you can ask some questions like this. Let's see what we get. How does deforestation contribute to biodiversity loss in the Amazon rainforest? All right, so it would translate this into a query, and then you'll get a nice summary like that. I've done some exercise, so let me see if I can do that. Let me see. I think I've done that on one of my preprint. Yeah, yeah. So I was interested in finding a journal. So please provide the title of your document. So this is one study I'm working on, is manuscript, and then it's asking me to give it the abstract, and then it's searching journals, and because I'm talking about research collaboration between the academia and in industry sector, so sustainability, that's an interesting matching journal. Scientometrics, because it is scientometric analysis, and so on. So it does provide some technology transfer, very important, between academia, industry, and the society. So though all these are good candidates for my manuscript. I think I also asked literature review about scientific mobility, which is one of my topic of interest, and yeah, and generated this map, like career development. So international student, they are international because they moved around, right? And then yeah, you get some interesting findings, many facets of academic mobility. You have a set of results, and it goes back to the Web of Science. Here I could sort on citations and so on. Let me go back to the assistant. Let me see what I've also done here. Yeah, so here it gives me some names of researchers who were quite active, and I can view their profiles, of course. Let me see what I've done here. Yeah, so this is my previous query. Yeah, I was also looking at, for example, what are the top researchers in physics, right? So that's a query that I've done. Here are the top 6 researchers who have published the most in the field of physics, right? And then it generated something interesting. Like I want to know about seminal papers on physics, but physics is quite huge. So of course, Higgs boson, for example. But then what are the key contributions of Albert Einstein in the field of physics? So I have an interesting summary here. What impact did Albert Einstein's work have on the development of nuclear energy and the Manhattan Project? Then I think there was also something related to Oppenheimer that has been suggested. I've seen it somewhere. Anyway, but I think you understand the logic. Let me see if I can show you something else that I didn't do. Yeah, so I've done physics, but you could do the same for any field, right? Yeah, so this is a claim profile because that's I can see the picture of the researcher. Wanted to show you something else. Let's do one from study of funding acknowledgement in scientometrics, for example. Right, so it's searching and give me the topics, and from there I might see something relevant, right? So citation analysis and so on. Okay, funding acknowledgement in scientific publication, a literature review. That's perfect for me. That's a good start, right? Yeah. Just looking at the chat. Do we have any questions or in the Q&A? Feel free to post your question in the chat or in the Q&A if you have any questions. I pretty much, yeah, covered pretty much everything I wanted to do. Yeah, let's see. Which institutions published the most on COVID in the last 12 months? Okay, there is a question from Badruddin. Could we have the link for Web of Science Research Assistant? Yeah, so so Research Assistant does not come for free in the Web of Science. So it is an add-on. So that comes with an additional subscription. So obviously you need Web of Science, but Research Assistant is an add-on. So you need to check with your institution, or feel free to. So I don't know where you're affiliated. What I know is that many institutions are taking now a free trial for 2 weeks, and they get access and they get a nice flavor of what the research assistant has to provide. But yeah, it's not free. So if you don't see it here, it's simply because your institution doesn't subscribe yet to this. So it is an add-on which comes with the subscription. UM6P Morocco. I don't think we arranged a trial yet. I would need to check. But yeah, if you could raise this with your librarian, I don't know if they're attending the session today. They might have missed the webinar or the announcement. But yeah, you can inform them about that. Another question from yeah, are you sharing the recording? Yeah, the recording will be shared. How do I get access to the Web of Science? So this is through subscription through your institution, usually through your library. So you need to check with your institution whether you have access or not. If otherwise, you can just let me know, and just based on my experience. So Laetitia, what's your institution? I can tell you just if I know if your institution has access. Let me check in the Q&A. So that was in the chat. Okay, Q&A, there is no question in the Q&A. Any other questions? As I said, it was supposed to be a 30 minutes session, so I've done 45 minutes now. It was not supposed to be 1 hour anyway. Okay, so University of Ghana has access to the Web of Science, but I don't think for the research assistant, not yet, because that research assistant was released last Wednesday. So, and many institutions are taking a free trial as we speak. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so if the research assistant does not appear in the website in Web of Science, that means you don't have access yet. Yeah, Caleb, I would need to check. I don't know about your specific institution if you have access. All right, so I covered all the topics. Thank you very much for your presence. As I mentioned earlier, you will get access to the recording. You will get the presentation, my contact details, and I will also share your certificate of participation as soon as possible.